On our broadcast tonight, the showdown on Capitol Hill.
There's nothing there but the gamble, but the bet. You are the bookie. You are the house.
Goldman Sachs executives are accused of running a crooked casino. Also tonight, the Walmart women, they finally get their day in court. What does it mean for other women if they win? Is there a fatal flaw in a device designed to save your life and making a difference with a simple idea on a school bus? Nightly News begins now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening. As the CEO himself said today, before this, most Americans really didn't know what Goldman Sachs was, what kind of bank it was, or what it did. Today on Capitol Hill in Washington, Goldman Sachs became the villain. The hearing had it all: outright dripping contempt, condescension, arrogance, profanity, stonewalling, even a suspension of bathroom privileges for 4 witnesses who were forced to stay in their chairs for hours. Masters of the universe, who many people blame for fueling the economic collapse, being questioned by senators who are hardly blameless themselves. We have all of it covered tonight, beginning with NBC's Lisa Myers in our Washington newsroom. Lisa, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. This went well beyond a public flogging. For 8 hours, 7 current and former Goldman executives were pilloried by members of both parties with the company's own internal documents and emails. The 18-month Senate investigation found that Goldman bet against its own clients and profited as the housing market collapsed.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give...
The tone for the day was set in the opening moments as Chairman Carl Levin sparred with Daniel Sparks, who used to head Goldman's mortgage department.
That's my question.
Again.
No. Answer my question.
I'm just trying to understand exactly what the question is.
The question is very clear.
Senator Susan Collins took over.
I'm starting to share the chairman's frustration already, and I'm only 30 seconds into my time.
She kept pressing on a simple but important question.
Could you give me a yes or no to whether or not you considered yourself to have a duty to act in the best interests of your clients?
I believe we have a duty to serve our clients well.
That drew scattered boos and groans in the room. Then another Goldman exec came to the rescue.
Not only do I believe that we do, I believe that we did.
But a series of internal company emails revealed Goldman executives expressed negative opinions about or even were betting against subprime mortgage deals while aggressively selling them to clients. In this email, a Goldman executive comments about a deal called Timberwolf. Boy, that Timberwolf was one expletive-deleted deal.
Look what your sales team was saying about Timberwolf. Boy, that Timberwolf was one deal.
Some context might be helpful.
The context, let me tell you, the context is mighty clear. June 22 is the date of this email. Boy, that Timberwolf was one deal. How much of that deal did you sell to your clients after June 22, 2007?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that, but the price would have reflected levels that they wanted to invest.
Oh, of course, but they don't know what it says. You didn't tell them you thought it was a deal.
Goldman's chief financial officer was asked what he feels when he hears of an email like that.
I think that's very unfortunate to have on email.
Are you embarrassed?
And very unfortunate. I don't.
On
again,
email,
please don't take that
How
the wrong
about
way.
feeling that way?
I think it's very unfortunate for anyone to have said that in any form.
So that people can
Senator Claire
bet on them.
McCaskill taunted the executives, saying Goldman was running what amounted to a fixed gambling enterprise.
You are the bookie. You are the house. You think it's so complicated and you think you're so smart? Any street gambler would never place a bet with a bookie or a house with the record that is revealed in the documents that this committee has gathered.
Some of the executives expressed sympathy for Americans who lost jobs and their savings because of the meltdown. But no one seemed to think Goldman deserved any blame.
Do you think that Goldman Sachs did anything wrong in this whole process of these synthetic CDOs?
Wrong, to me, has some qualitative comment about doing something inappropriate. That doesn't mean we didn't make mistakes or do deals that didn't turn out the way we had hoped they would.
Two things I'm getting out of these hearings. Number one, nobody did anything wrong. This was a natural disaster like a hurricane hit. And the second thing is that these things were just something that happened.
The young trader, Fabrice Tour, who along with the firm was charged with fraud by the SEC, emphatically denied wrongdoing.
I deny categorically the SEC's allegations, and I will defend myself in court against this false claim.
Senators noted that the executives had reason for caution, that they'd been heavily prepped by their lawyers and knew their words could later be used against them in legal proceedings.
How do you feel about destroying the American economy?
Tour and other executives were taunted after they left the hearing room.
You have no ethics and you have no shame.
At the end of the day, CEO Lloyd Blankfein strongly defended his firm, but promised some changes.
We have to do a better job of striking the balance between what an informed client believes is important to his or her investing goals and what the public believes is overly complex and risky.
While Goldman was taking a beating today, Brian, experts note that Congress also played an important role in the financial meltdown. It repealed financial safeguards enacted after the Great Depression, and it neglected to regulate some of the highly leveraged deals that brought the economy to the brink of collapse. Brian.
Lisa Myers in our Washington newsroom starting us off tonight. Lisa, thanks. And CNBC's David Faber was inside that hearing room all day. He's with us tonight at the end of that long day from the Capitol. David, as I said at the top of the broadcast, there was no changing some of this. Congress was coming after Goldman Sachs, nor was Goldman the clear villain until today. But the behavior of those first four executives, as one financial writer put it on the web today, they became the new face of this with the attitude they displayed.
Yeah, the unwillingness to take any responsibility was certainly a poignant moment in a long day of hearings. There's no doubt about it. And by virtue of the way the senators went one by one and their seeming unwillingness in any way, Brian, except for one executive, as Lisa pointed out in her piece, to really embrace at least some shred of, well, yeah, we were part of something that ultimately went off the tracks. That certainly was a moment today that none of us will forget.
So the anger spreads, David, and at least this firm is in the crosshairs.
No doubt. It's going to continue to be for some time. Of course, the SEC complaint is still out there. It will be for who knows how long. Could be a year or more before it gets to trial. Goldman, of course, is fighting a reputational fight here to maintain its reputation amongst corporate America. At this point, it seems still to be in a fairly strong position, but hearings like today certainly don't help.
All right, David Faber from the Capitol tonight. David, thanks. The other big economic story today playing out in Europe. Standard & Poor's downgraded Greece's bonds to junk level. The trouble in the nation of Greece has now spread to Portugal as well. Their bonds were also downgraded as they struggle with a huge budget deficit. With worries afoot about Spain and Italy, analysts are warning that Europe could be on the brink of a market crisis and Greece may be forced to default on its debt. Stock markets across Europe were down sharply today. On Wall Street in New York, worries about that situation sent the Dow down 213 points by day's end. Europe isn't the only place with debt trouble. We have one right here at home. The Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke told the White House Deficit Commission today that our large national debt threatens the economy over the long term, and the government will have to raise taxes, cut Social Security and Medicare, or spend less on everything else, including defense, in order to fix it. He said if a solution isn't found, it'll do great damage to the economy. Some fear flat-out fiscal ruin without a fix. Now to the growing national backlash against the state of Arizona over its tough new immigration law that says police can stop people just on the suspicion they might be there illegally. NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports on the movement to punish Arizona now by hurting the state's economy.
It's now gone beyond protest to threats of a boycott. as Arizona becomes a laughingstock to some.
Can we all agree that there's nothing more Nazi than saying, "Show me your papers"? There's never been a World War II movie that didn't include the line, "Show me your papers." It's their catchphrase. So heads up, Arizona, that's fascism. I know, it's a dry fascism, but it's still fascism.
That's tough. It's not unprecedented having to carry around your papers. It's the same thing that free black people had to do in 1863.
Anger over the law has gone viral. On Facebook today, pages like this one. Arizona, the Grand Canyon state, welcomes you unless you're a Mexican or look like one. Plus, Homeland Security Secretary and former Arizona Governor Janet Napolitano.
It will detract from some of the efforts that are already underway to really focus on the most serious offenders, the most serious criminals, the ones that not only have crossed the border illegally but are committing other crimes.
Today, the Attorney General called the law unfortunate. And tonight, Justice Department lawyers are still deciding whether to challenge it in court. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
A 26-year-old Florida man made what are described as two alarming statements today on a Delta flight from Paris to Atlanta. According to federal officials, he said his passport was forged. He also said he had explosives. The flight was diverted to Bangor, Maine, the first large U.S. airport for incoming European flights. The man was questioned, no explosives found, but he could face federal charges and prison time for making those false statements. We're watching the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico tonight. This is a satellite photo. The slick is now 20 miles from Venice, Louisiana, on the coast. 42,000 gallons of crude oil come out of that blown-out offshore well every day. All of it spilling into the Gulf for days now from 5,000 feet down below the surface where that platform once stood before sinking. No luck so far stopping the leak. They may try to burn off some of the oil in a controlled fire as early as tomorrow. Federal mine inspectors have made surprise raids on 3 mines run by Massey Energy, the same firm that operated the mine involved in the recent disaster in West Virginia that killed 29 miners. The inspectors say they found several serious safety violations at all 3 mines. Massey agrees there were some violations and it has fired several employees, but the company disputes some of the government's other findings. Also today, the nation's top mine safety officer told Congress he will start going to court to shut down mines that regularly violate safety rules. When our broadcast continues in just a moment, the women of Walmart, their lawsuit to level the playing field and what it might mean for millions of other women. And later, turning the school bus into a rolling place of learning and making a difference along the way. In Oklahoma tonight, 2 highly restrictive abortion measures are now law. One requires women to undergo an ultrasound and listen to a detailed description of the fetus before getting an abortion. The second protects doctors from malpractice suits if they choose not to inform the parents of an unborn child that the fetus has birth defects. The governor had vetoed both measures last week, but today the legislature had enough votes to override those vetoes by the governor. We have more tonight about women and Walmart, the biggest private employer in this country. The company has been accused for years of discrimination against women in areas like pay and promotions. This suit involves 1 million American women, current and former Walmart employees. If they win, it will affect millions and millions more all across the country. Our own Michelle Kaczynski reports.
Walmart, the largest
down, so it's very much awaited.
And the next step on the ladder may be our nation's highest court. Michelle Kaczynski, NBC News, Miami.
Up next here tonight, the story about diet and science, chocolate and depression specifically. Is there a connection between the sweet and the low? There's a warning to pass on to you tonight about tens of thousands of heart defibrillators. According to the FDA, defibrillators made by the Cardiac Science Corporation and sold under the label Power Heart could fail because of faulty software contained inside. Company says it sent a software fix to owners of its equipment. The FDA says that's not good enough and advises people to use defibrillators, other brands, if possible. We have posted more information on these brands affected. Put it on our website. That's nightly.msnbc.com. We've seen the heartbreaking images before, and tonight we're seeing them again in California, where the healthcare crisis is dire. Thousands of people with no insurance, no way to pay for a doctor or a dentist, lined up today to get basic care they need. One woman getting her first ever pap smear, others seeing a dentist for the first time. It was all free, provided by a relief organization set up originally to provide medical aid to third world countries, but it has found the need is greater here instead. The latest target in the fight against childhood obesity comes to us from California's Silicon Valley, where county officials there have proposed a ban on toys in fast food kids' meals like Happy Meals and the like. The ban would apply to any meal with more than 485 calories or 600 milligrams of salt, and that includes all the Happy Meals, even the ones that provide apple slices instead of French fries. We have all known that certain chemicals in chocolate can help you feel better, but researchers have now drawn a scientific connection, they say, between eating large amounts of chocolate and depression. However, before you do anything crazy, the authors of this study, you should know, said they're not sure if depression causes people to eat a lot of chocolate or if eating too much chocolate can lead to depression. They are still figuring that one out, they say. When we come back after a break, why some kids actually look forward to getting on board the school bus. It's their driver who's making a difference. Our Making a Difference report tonight has to do with school buses, which, as you may remember, are rolling repositories of racket. All that racket can test the concentration and patience of even the very best school bus driver. Well, tonight, the story of one such person who had an idea that it turns out is making a difference. The story from NBC's Kerry Sanders.
It may look like any other school bus in America, but as bus 546...
Imagine that. That's our broadcast for this Tuesday night. Thank you for being with us. I'm Brian Williams. Of course, we hope to see you right back here tomorrow evening. Good night.